Welcome to my channel, The Historic State. In the harsh, unforgiving world of combat, there exists a sacred, unbreakable promise. It is the very bedrock of trust, the invisible glue that binds soldiers together into a family forged in fire. This promise, echoed in every training camp, whispered on every battlefield, is simple yet absolute: leave no man behind. But what happens when that most fundamental of vows is shattered? What happens when a soldier is left for dead, abandoned by his own brothers in the scorching heat of battle? Today, we tell the incredible, harrowing true story of a man who was erased from the roster, officially declared killed in action, and left to perish in a forgotten, unforgiving jungle. But he refused to die. This is the saga of his impossible survival, his grueling, near-inhuman journey back from the clutches of death, and his relentless, burning quest for justice against those who broke the sacred oath. Nen-The Jungle was a green hell, a suffocating maze of relentless heat, biting insects, and unseen dangers. For weeks, Sergeant Marcus Thorne and his small, elite reconnaissance platoon had been navigating this nightmarish labyrinth of mud, torrential rain, and an elusive enemy that was everywhere and nowhere at once. Thorne was more than just a sergeant. He was the undisputed heart of his unit. A seasoned veteran of countless deployments, he was a father figure, a protector, a beacon of calm in the storm. He was the man you followed into the deepest fires of hell, because you knew, with every fiber of your being, that he would be the last one to leave. But on a rain-lashed Tuesday afternoon, during a vicious, disorienting ambush that erupted with terrifying speed, that absolute belief, that sacred trust, was shattered. A rocket-propelled grenade, a screaming harbinger of death, exploded perilously close to his position. The concussive blast threw him violently off the narrow, treacherous jungle path and down a steep, vine-choked ravine. He vanished, swallowed by the green abyss and the swirling chaos. In command of the platoon was a young, dangerously inexperienced officer, Lieutenant Michael Davis. Davis was a product of the military academy, a man who trusted maps, textbook protocols, and sterile decision trees far more than the raw, visceral gut instincts of the grizzled men on the ground. When he saw his platoon sergeant, the very anchor of his unit, disappear into that ravine amidst the blinding flash and deafening roar of the explosion, a primal panic seized him. The enemy was closing in, their numbers seemingly endless. His men were being slaughtered, bleeding out into the unforgiving earth, and every agonizing second of hesitation meant more irreparable casualties. He screamed Thorne's name, his voice hoarse, but the only reply was the deafening, relentless roar of gunfire and the guttural shouts of the enemy. In the sheer, overwhelming chaos and terror of that moment, surrounded by unimaginable pressure, Davis made a decision that would forever haunt him and define the rest of Marcus Thorne's life. Over the frantic, desperate calls of his dwindling men, Lieutenant Davis got on the radio to battalion command. "Sergeant Thorne is KIA, he reported, the chilling words tasting like ash in his mouth, a lie he would have to live with forever. "He's gone. We have to pull out now, or we'll all be wiped out. I cannot risk further losses." It was a cold, hard, tactical decision, the kind they drill into you at the academy. Cut your losses, save the unit. His men, shell-shocked and grief-stricken but trained to obey, laid down a final, desperate volley of suppressing fire and began a frantic retreat, abandoning their position, leaving the ravine and the man at the bottom of it to be swallowed by the unforgiving jungle. The sacred promise, shattered. Nen-But Sergeant Marcus Thorne wasn't dead, not yet. Hours later, as the torrential rain finally subsided, he awoke to a world of searing, excruciating pain. His left leg was shattered, pinned inextricably beneath a heavy, splintered tree branch that felt like a tombstone. He was covered in mud, his uniform torn, blood seeping into the earth. He tried to call out, his voice a hoarse, guttural whisper, but the only sound that answered him was the alien chirping of unseen insects. He looked around, dazed. Then the horrifying, crushing realization dawned on him. He was utterly, terrifyingly alone. They had left him. The thought, cold and sharp, was a wound deeper than any shrapnel. For a moment, a wave of profound despair, thick and suffocating, washed over him, threatening to drown his very spirit. But then, something else, something ancient and primal took over. The unyielding instinct of a survivor. The stubborn, almost defiant refusal to die. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was a force of nature, a hunter, a ghost, a man with a singular burning purpose: to live, and to make them pay. The next few weeks were a testament to the absolute limits of human endurance. Thorne used his years of elite combat training in ways the military manuals never intended. He freed his own leg, the excruciating pain almost making him black out, every sinew in his body screaming in protest. He then performed a gruesome act of self-surgery, cauterizing his gushing wound with his heated combat knife, the sickening smell of his own burning flesh filling the humid air. He fashioned crude splints from branches and expertly used jungle vines and even fishing line from his survival kit to stitch his wound closed. He became a creature of the jungle, his senses sharpened to an almost animalistic degree. He learned which plants were medicine and which were poison. He hunted for snakes, lizards, and insects with a makeshift spear, patiently waiting for his prey. He drank stagnant water, filtering it through torn cloth, his body ravaged by infection and malnutrition, yet his spirit remained unbroken. He moved like a ghost, a shadow flitting through the dense foliage, constantly evading both enemy patrols and the crushing despair of his situation. His only companions were the throbbing agony in his leg and the burning visceral memory of his abandonment. Every breath, every agonizing step was a victory. And 47 days. 47 sun-baked, rain-soaked, agonizing days after he was officially left for dead, a gaunt, bearded specter stumbled out of the suffocating jungle and collapsed at the feet of a stunned American patrol. He was half his original weight, his body ravaged by infection, dysentery, and malnutrition, his uniform a tattered ruin, but he was undeniably, miraculously, alive. Sergeant Marcus Thorne had returned from the dead. NNHI's impossible return sent shockwaves throughout the entire command structure. A man officially declared killed in action, whose family had already mourned him, had walked out of the jungle. When Thorne was finally strong enough to be debriefed, the horrifying truth of the official story became painfully clear. Lieutenant Davis had reported seeing him die, a definitive, unequivocal statement that had closed the book on Sergeant Thorne, allowing his platoon to extract without further incident. When Davis was reluctantly brought in to see him, his face was pale with terror, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock and dawning dread. He tried to maintain his carefully constructed lie, his voice trembling slightly. "It's a miracle, Sergeant," Davis stammered, avoiding Thorne's piercing gaze. "We saw you go down. There was no way. We truly thought you were gone. It was a tactical call, Sergeant. I had to save the men." But Thorne could see the desperate lie in his eyes, felt the profound betrayal like a fresh wound. Nan, Thorne didn't want revenge. He wanted something far more profound. He wanted justice. He wanted accountability for the breaking of their most sacred code, for the lie that had declared him dead and erased his existence. He filed a formal, meticulously detailed complaint, demanding an official inquiry into Lieutenant Davis's false report and the decision to abandon him. The military bureaucracy, desperate to avoid a public scandal, immediately tried to bury it. They offered Thorne a quiet, honorable medical retirement, a distinguished service medal for his survival, anything to make the inconvenient problem of Sergeant Thorne simply disappear. But Thorne refused. He had survived hell, and he would not be silenced now. The men from his squad were caught in the middle, visibly torn. They knew the truth, but testifying against their current commanding officer, against the system, was a terrifying prospect, potentially career-ending. An NTHE hearing was a tense, sterile affair, a battle of wills and words. Lieutenant Davis, appearing cool and collected, gave his testimony, painting himself as a pragmatic leader who made a tough, tragic call to save his men from annihilation. It seemed as though the system, as always, would protect its own. But then, the youngest private from the squad, a fresh-faced Private Miller whom Thorne had personally mentored, was called to the stand. He was visibly trembling, beads of sweat running down his temples, his eyes darting nervously between Davis and Thorne. The prosecutor, seeing the private's distress, asked him a simple, direct question. "Private Miller, did you personally see Sergeant Thorne's body? Did you witness him expire?" The private looked at Davis, the officer who had ordered the retreat. Then, his gaze finally met Thorne's, the man who had taught him how to be a soldier, how to be brave. And in that moment, the weight of the lie, the crushing burden of their broken promise, became too much to bear. Tears welled in his eyes as he finally spoke, his voice a barely audible whisper. "No, sir," he choked out, his voice cracking. We didn't see him die. We were just ordered to run." That single, whispered confession, raw and undeniable, shattered the official story into a million pieces. The courtroom was plunged into a stunned silence, broken only by the quiet sobs of the private. The inquiry swiftly found Lieutenant Davis guilty of filing a false after-action report and dereliction of duty. His career was over. He was dishonorably discharged, his once promising future destroyed by his own choices. Sergeant Thorne had his justice. He never returned to the battlefield. His injuries were too severe for combat, but he had won a different kind of war, a war for truth and honor. Then Sergeant Marcus Thorne's story became a powerful, cautionary legend whispered within the Special Forces community. A brutal, unforgettable reminder that a soldier's life is not a statistic to be managed, and the creed of "leave no man behind" is not a suggestion. It is a sacred, inviolable promise. He endured the unthinkable, not for a medal, not for revenge, but to ensure that the soul of the unit, the unshakable bond between brothers, remained unbroken. He walked through hell and back, a ghost returned from the grave, to remind them all what it truly means to be a soldier. His survival was a miracle, but his fight for justice was his ultimate victory. And thank you for watching The Historic State. If this incredible story of impossible survival, profound betrayal, and the relentless pursuit of justice moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Because the most important battles are often fought not for territory, but for the very honor and integrity of those who stand beside us.